No matter which way you looked at him, Ashford Shastri Sinanan was a towering figure. Known fondly as the Bengal Tiger for his physical stature, commanding presence and stately bearing, Ashford Sinanan has left an enduring legacy to the nation of Trinidad and Tobago. He was a truly astonishing and accomplished son of the soil. The Sinanan name is, of course, inextricably woven into the fabric of local politics and public service. Yet, among that family's gifted politicians, lawyers, doctors, and the like, Ashford Sinanan holds a special place.
Given the history of the Sinanan family in politics and public life on the whole, I think my generation has a lot to live up to, you know, big shoes to fill, not only in parliamentary life, but in public life, professional life as well. And I think among us, you know, we're well on the way. There are a lot of professionals among us, a lot of lawyers and doctors, and I have confidence that a few of us will step up and continue the family's legacy in public service.
It is perhaps something that runs in the family, because you would know that the present speaker is his son-in-law, and the Mitra, of course, was in Parliament before Ashford. So the Sinanans have had quite a parliamentary career, and Ashford's was very notable indeed.
Born in 1923, Ashford was one of 4 sons that studied law. This would be the first step on his way to a life of politics and international diplomacy.
I remember Ashford coming to me when he was about doing his finals, and I think he said that I spotted 2 or 3 questions that he got, and he did very well. Then he was, of course, in practice, and he went into politics.
In terms of his contribution to public life in Trinidad and Tobago, he's made a significant contribution, starting back in the 40s, in 1948, when he was elected as a borough councillor to the San Fernando Borough Council at the age of 25, and in 1950 being elected to Parliament for the first time, and being re-elected to Parliament in 1956. And I think he was obviously very instrumental in the forming of the DLP in 1957. He was a deputy political leader of the DLP, which was at the time led by Sir Alexander Bustamante. And in 1958 fought the West Indian federal elections and was elected to the West Indian Federal Parliament, where he served as leader of the opposition. He was back in Parliament again in 1961 after those elections, and served until 1966, when he retired from Parliament, and his life took on a different phase. You know, he went into public service in a different, of a different sort. He became a diplomat in 1969, being appointed Trinidad's first High Commissioner to India. And following that appointment in 1971, he was also appointed Ambassador to Japan, as well as High Commissioner to Ceylon and Singapore. And then in 1973, appointed High Commissioner to the UN, Ambassador to UN in Geneva. So, you know, his service spans many decades. And of course, in 1981, he was back in Parliament again, this time as an independent senator, until 1986.
He was a man who was well liked by his allies and respected by his political foes.
He was the sort of person who mixed easily and freely and was generally liked. Even those who were on the opposite side of the fence to him had high regard for Ashford, better known as Major. So you might sometimes have Major Sinanan.
Among his many achievements was Ashford's representation in the federal parliament as leader of the opposition.
It was at the height of the PNM power, when they had the federal elections in Trinidad, and the DLP fought in Trinidad, and Bustamante had fought in Jamaica, I think under the Jamaica Labour Party. They were able to get in the 2 bigger islands a majority of votes. And it was the intention of Sir Alexander Bustamante to make Mr. Sinanan the federal prime minister. Now, I'm convinced in my own mind that he would have been the ideal federal prime minister. However, the history will tell you that within the smaller island groups like Grenada and Barbados, there's some change of policy or change of plans for those elected persons. As a result, he narrowly missed out from being the federal prime minister.
With the impending collapse of the federal parliament, Ashford desired to re-enter the mainstream of local politics. Luckily, serendipitous events and Ashford's quick thinking would enable his smooth transition.
When they wanted that change of leadership in the DLP between Badis and Rudranath Kapilou, they wanted to properly organize the party also for the pending 1961 elections. So I had developed a reputation of being a good organizer in sports, and as a consequence, Ashford Center called me and I went, and that is how I myself became involved in politics, and I became closer to Ashford. So we started the organization process and we contested the 61 elections on the same platform. He was in the federal parliament, but Ajoda Singh was nominated to contest Sipari on a DLP ticket. I was nominated to contest San Fernando West, but Ajoda Singh died just after nomination. And Ashford, being the very shrewd politician that he was, knowing that the federal parliament was going to fold up in '62, and obviously he'll be out of the parliamentary stream, he encouraged and influenced Rudranath, who was the leader, to let him contest the seat that Ajoda Singh was to contest. So that was in fact a by-election after the '61 elections. And he won that seat and he went into the parliament.
Ashford's strength and versatility as a communicator meant that he commanded widespread respect from all those who knew him.
He was known in the legal field as a legal luminary. And I'll tell you what I mean legal luminary. He was a solicitor who had a great foresight about the law. In 1966 or 67, he moved a motion so that solicitors would have had an audience in the High Court. Now, I'll explain this way. In 1966, solicitors and barristers was in a separate plane. That is, the solicitors were practicing generally in the magistrates' court and the barristers in the High Court. He felt this was a waste of talent, that you should have what you call a fused profession, and that he should have been able to speak in the High Court. He moved his motion seeking that audience. The matter came up before Justice Braffett, and the person who opposed the motion from the state was Gerard Desils. This gentleman was eventually going to become a Court of Appeal judge. Eventually he lost the motion. But the foresight is shown because about 20 years after, that is in about 1988, we had the Legal Profession Act, whereby the profession was fused. So that shows you the sort of insight that he had.
Indeed, he would serve many different interests if he believed it would benefit the people of Trinidad and Tobago.
But as a personality, Ashford was a powerhouse, a political powerhouse, an outstanding political personality. In that period, there were many who were outstanding, like Simbunat, Sukaran to an extent, Steve Maraj. I'm picking out people from the opposition benches. But among them, Ashford was really a totally outstanding personality. And he had so much respect in the country that his views were respected not only on the opposition benches, but also on the government benches. I am sure there's a period when he was appointed by Dr. Williams to be our High Commissioner in India. I don't remember the exact period, but it might have been some time before he became an independent senator. And that is the kind of respect and the kind of political authority that he was able to generate.
As for his diplomatic appointment as High Commissioner to India, he considered it one of the happiest moments of his professional life.
At a farewell dinner for a small group of persons, he mentioned some form of history in his life when he said, "My grandfather came from India as an Indian and as indentured immigrant, crossing the sea, the Kalapani as you would say, by sailboat, taking 3 months to reach Trinidad. And today his grandson is going to go to India. In only about 3 days, the grandson will reach India, by aircraft of course, and he will return to India as an excellency, being our High Commissioner to India. That was one of his proudest moments in life.
Because he was in India as a resident High Commissioner. And a resident High Commissioner in India would be accredited as ambassador to the non-Commonwealth countries around, or as High Commissioner to the Commonwealth ones. But a country like Japan, say, he would be accredited as ambassador. So he moved around that part of the world quite considerably.
The accomplishments and service Ashford Sinanan gave to his country would lead to his receiving the Shakonia Gold Medal, an award for which he was justifiably proud.
Shortly before he died, I think, my grandfather was awarded the Shakonia Medal Gold, which is his nation's second highest national award, which I think was a nice, a nice way before his passing to have his service in public life recognized nationally. And I think it did mean a lot to him.
As a nation, we mourn the loss of Ashford Shastri Sinanan, public figures who can move so freely among dignitaries, yet still connect with the common man, are very rare indeed. He will long be remembered for his 4 decades of service to country and for being a man of undeniable integrity and honor.
He was able in India to mix with the great envoys of the US, the envoys of the UK, Russia. He was able to rub shoulders with those excellencies. But when he came back to Trinidad, he still had the common touch. That was the measure of the man that we deal with.
A charismatic guy with a sense of humor that was undeniable.
A man large in size, large in mind, generous in attitude, and large-hearted.
He was indeed a Caribbean man, well known across the Caribbean as an astute politician, a leader of people, and a true professional.